Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today and welcome to our webinar, Automatic MSIX Conversion and Compatibility Analysis Framework. My name is Bogdan and I lead the Advanced Installer team. You might have seen my previous webinars or maybe we've met at one of the conferences I've been in the last years. Today I'm going to be just your moderator for this webinar. And my colleague Dan will share with you all of the new stuff we've been working on in the last months. Thank you for registering and for your participation. Before we get started, we should go through a few technical details. First, the questions. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. You can type your question in the Q&A panel and of the control panel. We have some of our technical support team members joining us today, and they will try to address your inquiries during the presentation. We will go to all of the questions again at the end so everybody can hear them. That being said, I would like to introduce our presenter, Dan Gheorghiță. He's a senior software engineer at Advanced Installer. Dan, the floor is all yours, my friend.
Thank you, Bogdan, for making the introduction. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Dan, Senior Software Engineer at Advanced Installer, and today I'm going to show you how you can evaluate your portfolio of application to see which one of them can be converted to MSIX. This process could be very painful if you do it manually. With Advanced Installer, you have the option to automate the whole conversion process and evaluation. At the end, you will have a report of the applications that were not just converted, but also installed successfully and which one failed. Before starting the webinar, since we have a live demo, we need to launch the script so that you can have enough time to finish executing. And now let's launch the script file, and the script takes as parameters the input list. Basically, here is the list of packages that we want to analyze, the path to MSIX Troubleshooter. The troubleshooter will help us with the deployment of the MSIX packages, and the path to the certificate, as signing is mandatory for MSIX. Right now, the repackager is connecting to our vCenter, and we'll start the repackaging process for each application at a time. So let's see what is the agenda for our presentation. So Windows 11 is here for some time, so migration to Windows 11 will be necessary sooner or later, unless it is a hardware limitation. Although you can upgrade Windows even if the hardware is not supported, we don't recommend it. Microsoft could stop supporting systems that aren't certified for Windows 11, and you might not get critical security updates anymore. Microsoft has rolled out Windows 11 updates for unsupported hardware since launch. Each new operating system update has 18 months lifetime. Since migration could take months, you will not have too much time to rest, as when finishing, you'll have to start again for the next Windows version. But what does the Windows 11 brings to the table? Well, security. Security is the fundamental aspect that we need to consider for the new operating system. We'll discuss later in detail about the new security aspects for Windows 11. Advanced Installer can be used in an unattended process without any UI being displayed. That means you can automate the whole process, from selecting the package that needs to be analyzed to virtual machine connection, MSIX generation, testing the package, and the compatibility results. For MSIX installation and testing, we'll use the troubleshooter, as I explained before, a free tool from Advanced Installer that can be used for troubleshooting MSIX deployments. It offers a friendly log about the results of the deployment, be it as successful or in case the deployment failed. It also supports automation, so we'll take advantage of the command line support and integrate it in our workflow. Beside the hardware requirements that bring security enhancement for the Windows 11, for example, the enhanced kernel protection against potential threats, there are also software applications that are new with Windows 11. One of them is the Smart App app control, which seems to be a combination of Windows Defender and Smart Screen. Smart App Control is a cloud service that tries to make a confident prediction about the safety of the app that you're running. If the service believes the app to be safe, then Smart App Control will let it run. If the app is believed to be malicious or potentially unwanted, then the Smart App Control will block it. If the security service is unable to make confident prediction about the app, then the Smart App Control checks to see if the app has a valid signature. And here is what can happen. If the app has a valid signature, then Smart App Control will let it run. If the app is unsigned or the signature is invalid, then the Smart App Control will consider it untrusted and block it for your protection. As it looks like the digital signature becomes a must for MSI as well, not just for MSIX. Since signing was the most painful aspect for MSIX, then this aspect becomes painful for MSI as well. Here, you need to have a good collaboration with the security team so that you can have access to the digital certificate to be able to sign the resulted packages. It doesn't matter if it will be an MSI or an MSIX package. The access to the certificate can be problematic in large organizations. But now let's think about what could potentially trigger the Smart App Control to prevent the app from running. Well, from our test, we could see that the VB script seems to be a potential flag for the Smart App Control. You might want to move in this case from VB script to PowerShell. Also, all the DLLs and EXEs that are used as custom action should be signed. I think that all these challenges will only accelerate the MSIX migration. The question is if we are on or off of the MSIX train. Well, that is hard to say, but why not have an overview of the current portfolio without too much headache? And here is how Advanced Installer can help you. You should target first the apps that are not critical, let's say the human resources app, and see how ready are they for the MSIX migration. If this comes with good results, start exploring the whole portfolio. The whole automation process was improved based on the customer feedback that we received from their challenges they were facing with. We hear their voices and improve our Advanced Installer to correspond with their needs. Let's take a look at the automation workflow. How does it work? First, you need to export the packages that you want to be evaluated. Advanced Installer needs to have their location and the silent switches. Provide any command line that is required for each package. For example, if you have a transform or a patch that also needs to be applied to the original installer. The resulting package will contain all those information as they are captured during the repackaging process. After this, start working on the script that will basically launch each package, will start the repackaging operation, create the MSIX package, and test it. Each MSIX package is installed and the results are written in an overview conversion list. Also, for each package, we'll have a detailed report regarding the conversion and installation. If the installation of the MSIX is successful, then you'll get an MSIX package which can be further tested to see if the application works as expected. If the installation of the MSIX failed, you'll only get the report containing the reasons why the MSIX conversion failed. Maybe there was a problem with the original package, maybe there was a problem with the MSIX installer, or a problem during the build operation. And now we need to consider what should happen with the MSI. Advanced Installer allows MSI import and create the MSIX directly from the package without any repackaging operation. However, we recommend you to repackage the MSI that needs to be converted, as the MSI could be just a wrapper and the actual installation is handled through custom actions. And for this, I will use Google Chrome as an example. Basically, the Google Chrome MSI is just a wrapper that has a single custom action that handles the whole installation process. Let's take a look and see how the script that handles the whole process looks like. So we have the script that handles the repackaging operation and testing the MSIX package. This takes as input the list of packages that we want to convert, the path to our MSIX troubleshooter and the certificate. And we have here, with just a couple of lines of code, this functionality that is provided by Advanced Installer. We're repackaging in our vSphere. Each time we select the snapshot, the same snapshot for the repackaging operation. And for each package, we start the repackaging process. After the repackaging operation is over, we create a template project file that will be further used to import the repackager results. After that, enable signing, set the certificate, and here you can see how function looks like. Adding the MSIX build to the Advanced Installer project that is created, signing it, and here is where the troubleshooter comes in hand. Basically, the troubleshooter will get each package and test it, and the details about the result will be written in the log file. That was a quick overview of the script that is handling the repackaging and automation process. We've used PowerShell, Advanced Installer Architect version 20, VMware Workstation, and MSIX Troubleshooter version 2.0. For 100 apps, about 100 that we've tested in a couple of hours, actually we triggered the conversion over the night, and in just a few hours we had this report that is telling us that the success rate for the application was about 63%, 34% of them failed to convert, and partial success for 3%. But let's see what it means, each one of them. So an error is considered when the installation or the build fails. And for this, you have the log that is giving you all the information about the failure. Partial success is when the package contains unsupported features for the MSIX. And here you need to consider drivers or scheduled tasks. And in this case, the conversion to MSIX and the installation of the MSIX is successfully, but since it misses some resources from the original package, is counted as a partial success. And now let's go to our report and see the status for the script. Okay, it's still running. It hadn't finished yet, but let's see what packages were converted so far. So we'll get into the validation checks output. And here we have the conversion overview document. And if we take a look, we see the packages that have been analyzed so far. And we have the Visual Studio Code, which is a success. And we have the Mozilla Firefox, which is a failure. And as I was telling you before, for the packages that are successfully converted, we will get the path to the MSIX package. And if we take a look, we see the Visual Studio MSIX package ready for us so that we can test the package. And here we have the conversion log, even if it is successful, because some warnings as we see here may appear. And we see some warnings regarding the missing logos and so on. Okay, at this time, you can open, import the MSIX package in Advanced Installer, fix those warnings so that you can have a fully working MSIX package. Now, let's see what happened with the Mozilla Firefox. And for the packages that are not successfully converted, as it is the Mozilla Firefox, we have only the conversion log, so no MSIX. But let's see what happened during the conversion. And we see there was an error. And if we take a look of this error, let me zoom in. And here we have the error. And the error says that the package installation failed because a version of the service exists outside the Apex packaging. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the MSIX, but the installation for the MSIX is done locally. And in this case, I already have the Mozilla Firefox installed because my Firefox is already installed. It also installed the service, and the same service is being installed by the MSIX. Since the service is already registered on my machine, then the installation fails. But please keep in mind, this is done on purpose just to have an overview of the information that could be in the conversion log. If I would test the MSIX package in a clean environment, in this case, most likely the conversion will be successful as well. So it was done on purpose on my machine where I have the Firefox MSI actually installed. Let's move forward with our presentation. And we are here for the Q&A session. So feel free to ask any questions.
We already have a few questions, Dan. So thank you for the great demo and all the informations you've given us today. And this is a shorter session than our usual webinars. We've been focusing specifically on this important demo, even if it took us only 15 minutes to show you guys how this works. It's something that we've been working for months, and its potential to save you time is huge from our perspective. So until Dan is going to look over a few questions, I can take the first one from Albert. Thank you, Albert, for your questions. So the first one says, does the automation workflow covers app launch after success installation? So what Albert is asking is, do we check if the application is launching correctly after it has installed the MSIX package? And in the first version, what we've shown you today here is the first version of our automation support. We don't check for that. We are planning to do this in the next version into a prior release of this framework improvement. It is something that we knew from the beginning. It will be important from you, but we felt that this is not the main blocker of the issue. So the main blocker was to save you time from automating all the steps that come from provisioning a virtual machine, converting the package, getting the packages, and things that we've seen in production to be consuming a lot of time without giving the opportunity to the packaging engineers to really add value in the process. So in a future version, somewhere in the next 3 months, depending on how we plan our sprint, this is the top priority for improving the troubleshooting. So the engine that troubleshoots the packages is looking at how the package is installed, if they install correctly, and it will also start looking if the application is launching successfully or not. And as Dan presented in the diagram of this entire process, the point here is to save you a lot of time during the packaging process. So, but it still needs a packager at the end of the process to validate that everything is working, or might do some tweaks on the package. Okay, let's see. Dan, do you want to answer any other questions, or should I go with? I have a few ones.
I'll take the next one: how to create a custom certificate for MSIX. Thank you for your question. So Advanced Installer has the possibility to create a self-signed certificate directly with Advanced Installer, which will be recognized on the machine where you have Advanced Installer installed, or you can use a PowerShell script to create a self-signed certificate. So it's not mandatory to have a certificate purchased from a trusted authority for signing MSI. You can use self-signed certificate, but what you need to take into consideration that the certificate that was used for signing MSIX, in case it is a self-signed certificate, it needs to be trusted on the machine that you are testing the MSIX package. In my case, the MSIX installation is done locally, so the repackaging is done remote on the vSphere, but the MSIX installation and testing is done on my local machine, where the certificate that was used for signing, it's a self-signed certificate one, but it's trusted on my machine. So I hope I answered to your question, or feel free to make a follow-up.
Okay, another great question from Rory. So Rory is asking, are we incorporating the package support framework in this analysis and build process? For those of you that haven't followed our progress with the MSIX support, the short answer is yes, and I'm going to give you a little bit more details. So as Dan said, in this framework, we use advanced installer, our integration with the Hyper-V or VMware, and the MSIX Troubleshooter, which is a free tool we've been developing. Inside advanced installer, we've developed the most advanced, I know, sorry for repeating the word advanced, the most powerful integration for the package support framework that we can see on the market today. And basically, the moment you repackage an MSIX or app-v package, whatever kind of package you have, and you start generating an MSIX from it, especially for MSI and EXE packages, where we can see if you have a working directory, a shortcut argument, or other type of resources that might need some PSF, we try to add them automatically. Some, we can detect them at repackaging time. For some, you will need to run our troubleshooter integration manually from advanced installer. So after we generate the project, the application might launch, but in a certain scenario, it will fail. So in that case, you need to run from our user interface. We have a trace app option, and it allows you to quickly add fix-ups without having to manually add the PSF, the package support framework binaries, or to write the config.json configuration file. So all of that is handled by us automatically. You just have to specify some very short input parameters for the fix-ups you add. So if you will look in on our YouTube channel, so that's youtube.com/advanced installer, in the webinars list, there is a complete session on our on the advanced installer integration with the package support framework, and that's where we have more details on how this works. But to put it shortly, in this automation, we do integrate some fix-ups that can be done automatically at the moment, and others you need to post-process the package after it has been generated by advanced installer.
Okay, Bogdan, thank you. I will take the next one. So from Craig, it's asking us if it is just for MSI or we can do it for app-v packages as well. So repackaging, we recommend repackaging for MSI, as those MSI might contain custom action and you want to capture the effect that those custom action do on the system. But you have the possibility to import the MSI. And for app-v packages, since no custom action is involved, then you can import the app-v package in Advanced Installer. And when you import the app-v package in Advanced Installer, basically you have access to an Advanced Installer project, which gives you the possibility to create a new build from it. You can create an MSI, an MSIX, and when that happens, when you create, let's say, an MSIX package, Advanced Installer will automatically sync the content of the MSI or of the app-v package with the MSIX. So no further steps are required from your end. I hope I answered to your question. Bogdan, if there is something else that you might want to add.
It's partially related to your question. It's a question from Eric. He says that we always advise to repackage the MSI to overcome custom actions. And to clarify this, it's not because we want to do more work or just we want to sell our repackager, because Advanced Installer can also import an MSI, and that's much faster. And theoretically, it's much more reliable because we are practically reading every data from each table of the MSI. The problem is that in the case of an MSIX, and we've seen this with customers in trial doing this, the MSI might contain custom actions, just as you said during the demo, that can alter the system, and those cannot be imported into an MSIX package because there is no support for custom actions inside an MSIX. So basically, how the application would look configured by an MSI installation would be different than the one of an MSIX. So that's why it is recommended to convert, even if you have an MSI and you want to go to MSIX, it's recommended to repackage that MSI. And it's the same advice we've been giving for AppV packaging in the past, because you get to the same problem if you don't do it. Okay, and there is one more quick question from Albert. So Albert said, is there any limitation for automating the MSIX conversion? The legacy size, for example. I assume that you're referring to the package size, Albert. So we don't have any specific limitations. It's the repackager that is used to do the conversion to the MSIX is the same repackager that we've been using for over a decade now to do conversions to MSI and to AppV. And basically, we've leveraged that infrastructure and that know-how and expanded it by teaching it to generate an additional type of package. So once you create a project in Advanced Installer with a repackager, you can generate an MSI, AppV, or MSIX package all from the same project. You don't have to do repackaging all over again. And in terms of limitations, one limitation that could prevent the automation itself, not the conversion, but the automation, could be if the installer itself doesn't have any command line switches. And we, even if you don't have that, we have a support to automatically detect the buttons from your installer and try to click next, and so on. But that is based on, I don't know exactly the name of the technology from Microsoft that we've been using to automate that process. But what I can tell you is that it's not 100% reliable. It depends on the technology that was used to build the UI of that installer. So if it's something standard, it should work without any problem, even if there are no command line switches. But if it's something made in some custom UI framework or some combination of HTML and WPF or what are UI frameworks that the customer chooses to use for building his installer, there might be some hiccups in that part. But the scenario that we've started from was when a customer of ours said they have a repository of application in their SCCM infrastructure, and they said, how can we test these applications to see if they can fit to MSIX, or to see what percentage of these applications fit a possible conversion to MSIX without investing months of packaging time. So we knew from the beginning that if those applications are in SCCM, we can export them from there, and we get all the switches for their silent deployment. So we can basically pass those switches in the repackaging session and just handle the rest with the advanced installer and the MSIX troubleshooter.
Okay, I'll take the next one from Rory, which he is asking us if the installer needs to be an MSI and some of the exe are not wrapper of an MSI. So from the list of packages that we've converted, if we take a look, we can see that that we have the Visual Studio Code, which is an exe package. We have the Mozilla Firefox, which is the same, an exe package. So it doesn't matter if it is an exe or an MSI file. You only need to provide the switches for the silent conversion. And in our case, we need to have the location where that file is located on disk, and the command line for silent installation. And we have both EXEs and MSI files. And in this case, it's actually the advanced installer setup. So there is no limitation when it comes to MSI or EXE packages that you can repackage.
Great. There is one question from Rushikesh. I think it's a question. So it says, if we deploy the package via SCCM or Intune, is it preferred to use custom certificate or any other way? I assume you're asking if it's mandatory to use a digital certificate, or if it's preferred to use a certificate generated inside the company or not. So as Dan said in the beginning, you need a code signing certificate. You can't deploy an MSIX package without signing it. This is one of the main ways through which Microsoft is trying to raise the security bar when it comes to packaging and deploying your applications inside your infrastructure. The source of the certificate is disputable. I don't think, I'm not a security expert, so don't take my advice 100%, but from my perspective, it doesn't matter if the certificate is generated internally in your company or if it's bought from a third-party vendor, as long as you are deploying the packages inside. Because if you generate your own certificate and you manage its access, well, so only certain persons have access to that certificate, so it's not something that could create a security liability. And of course, deploy it on all of the machines from your infrastructure, so the machine recognize it. From the perspective, from the security perspective, the benefits you get are the same. The package will install successfully. There is an additional level of ensuring that no packages that have been tampered with get deployed in the infrastructure. So the trick here is to have a strong communication with the security team in your organization and to set up a process of certificate management that's robust and that doesn't create the opportunity for external attacks. So you don't want all the packagers in the team to have access to the certificate that's going to be used for deploying the applications in the infrastructure. But at the same time, you don't want to create moments that basically delay and affect the deployment of the application simply because the access to the certificate is too strict. So this is besides everything that's new with MSIX, I think the collaboration with the security team is one of the big points that we've seen in talking with other customers that you need to do now as a packaging team, as packaging and deployment team. It's something that maybe in the past you didn't worry that all about it. But if you're looking at MSIX, you need to have a strong collaboration with the security team and define a clear plan to manage those code signing certificates. You can use multiple certificates, some for testing and some for production. And the strategy will vary depending on the size of your organization. If you're in one place, if you have locations in multiple countries or multiple cities, if you have different teams that manage those locations, or it's only one team. So it's not it's not a single solution that can be applied to everyone.
Okay, Bogdan, thank you. I'll take the next one, and we have an anonymous attendee. He is asking us if we can show what happens if he gets any error with the sign tool. So the log will not contain just information about the MSIX deployment. It will also contain information during the build operation. As we could see, there were some warnings in the log that we checked for the Visual Studio that some assets were missing. And if you get an error during the build operation for a signing issue, that issue will be listed there. So you will have information about the signing. But since it passed enough time, we can check the status for the conversion, and we can see exactly what is the result for the conversion. Here is the list of packages. There are 5 packages that we try to convert during the demo. And here is the conversion for each package. And we see a rate of success for 4 of them and only one that failed, which is the Firefox, which we also analyzed during the demo. It was already finished for analysis. And the script now it's over. So in less than 30 minutes, we've converted 5 packages. 4 of them were successful. 1 of them failed because it was on purpose. But if we would be testing this on a clean machine, then we would have 5%, 100% conversion success. Okay, are there any other questions?
There's one more question from Jay. That's a very good question. That's why I kept it for the end. And the question goes like this: is it possible to repackage an app as MSIX when it has prerequisites runtimes? For example, Jay has an app that depends on Python. Do I include Python in the MSIX package, or is it possible to package Python as a separate MSIX dependencies like Microsoft does with Visual C++ redistributable? That's a very good question, Jay, and we've had discussions internally and with some customers. And there are multiple options here to do here. So the best option is that if you have a prerequisite, which you know that is also available as an MSIX package, to declare that as a dependency in the package. So in Advanced Installer and in probably with other packaging tools, there's an option to define MSIX dependencies in your package. So that's basically an entry into your manifest. If you don't have an UI with the MSIX packaging tool, for example, you would need to manually edit the Apex manifest and add a row in the manifest that says, hey, this is my dependency and the name of the package and the versions of that dependency if you're targeting a certain version of that dependency. With Python, I think there is an official package for Python in this example from Microsoft in the MSIX store. So this is a simple solution to just add the Python package as a dependency, if I'm not wrong. The same for the Visual C++ redistributable. So those are available as an MSIX package. Now, the harder part is if you have an application which has a prerequisite which is not available as an MSIX package. And here you have 2 options. If it's a prerequisite that's very used by many applications inside your company, and you want to be deploying that separately from the application, you can do that. So you can choose to pre-install the prerequisite on the machine. You can do that on the repackaging machine, so the repackager doesn't capture its installation when you're doing the conversion. And you can also add it as a requirement in SCCM. So when you schedule an MSIX for deployment, you can request certain apps from the list, and those apps to be or prerequisites to be pre-deployed with your package on the machine. You can also do a repackaging session where you capture all of these prerequisites and the main MSIX and the main application inside a single MSIX package. But in that case, basically, if you have multiple apps that use the same prerequisite, you will just deploy a larger package inside your infrastructure, and you would just increase the bandwidth usage, the space used on the machine, and stuff like that. And depending on the complexity of the prerequisite, you might have troubles converting that to MSIX or not. So maybe some prerequisites are not fully compatible to be converted to MSIX. That needs to be analyzed on a case-by-case scenario. So the first option is to deploy it as an MSIX if you have it. If it's something common, as I said, as Python or Visual C++. If not, just my recommendation would be to deploy it as a standard exe or silent package if this is acceptable in your infrastructure, and just deploy the main application as MSIX. Converting the prerequisite, as I said, if it's a short, small package, it's doable without any problems. If it's a larger package, the only advantage you have from converting the prerequisite at the same time with the main application into a single MSIX package is that you avoid accidental conflicts, or maybe you can use different versions of the same prerequisite for different applications without having conflicts, because each of them will stay inside the container of its respective application. So you can you will avoid situations where somebody maybe upgrades a prerequisite and that's no longer compatible. It's very rare, but it can happen with your application, or somebody accidentally removes a prerequisite and your application doesn't work anymore. So it's an assessment that needs to be done by your team depending on how you plan to deploy that application. What I can tell you, if you plan to publish, but I don't think there's anybody here in this webinar that plans to publish the package in the MS store, is that you can only declare dependencies in the package MSIX. So you cannot have prerequisites that are not packaged as an MSIX package. But if you deploy it internally with Intune or SCCM, that's changed, that's flexible. So as I said, it's the solution needs to be studied based on your deployment scenario. And I think this is the last question. There was an initial question from Albert regarding Smart App Control. Is it does Smart App Control on Windows 11 substitute the Windows App Locker from Windows 10? And from what we know, this is the solution was presented as a combination of the Smart Screen and Windows Defender support. I don't remember to be seeing any mention of the App Locker, but you can find more details on the Microsoft documentation website. There's an article that's called "What is Smart App Control?" If you just type Google, that should guide you straight to that article, or you can check the answer in the Q&A pane. There's a link my colleagues added. And with that being said, thank you all for joining us today. And for all your friends that couldn't make it, or colleagues, you'll soon receive an email with the link to our recording when we'll post this webinar on our YouTube channel. If you have more questions, you can always email us at support@advancedinstaller.com, or just reach out to us on Twitter if you prefer that. And we would love to hear more about your plans with MSIX and any challenges you have. We're already evaluating this with a few customers, and we are looking forward to see more scenarios that we can help you improve and get your productivity up with regards to MSIX packaging.
Thank you all for attending. We hope you have learned and enjoyed this presentation.